What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the 5280 podcast on the MHRT network. I am your host, Mundungus Creevy, alongside my co-host, Cameron Parker, Gage Madrid, and Glenn Hauser. How is everybody doing today?
Excited today.
Yeah.
Today was a good day.
Today is a good day. We got maybe a sign for the future. And some other things started happening. Obviously, some news became official, but no, doing well. Trying to, survive the heat down here in Colorado. But, aside from that, things are going well.
Well, good.
It's been super awesome it's been super awesome to finally have some NFL news to talk about over the last really week, especially. Yeah. The dry period was really hitting hard over the last couple of weeks, especially over on my YouTube channel. So I'm so glad we finally have stuff to talk about.
It's like pulling teeth.
It is, man. It is.
Yeah.
Right. Plus, we got training camp getting ready to start. Are all of you guys going to training camp at least at some point?
Yeah. I will be going one day. So anybody that is listening to this and is going to be there on August 5th, which is that Saturday, I will be there. So if you guys want to,
every other day but August 5th.
So, yeah.
Cam's gonna have his autograph table, selling his own personal merch.
Headshots of Ashton Kutcher. Here you go.
Which says pitter patter. Let's get at her.
He said he's selling Ashton Kutcher Funko Pops.
Right.
Well, I'm jealous of every single one of you because I don't get to go. So all of you suck. But let's go ahead and get into some of the news. We'll kick it off with a little NFL news first. Dan Snyder ended up finally selling the Washington Commanders. It looks like the new owners celebrated at bars with some fans, celebrating Dan Snyder being gone. So that's good.
Well, and I was gonna say the fun, the nice little Broncos tie-in here was actually the group that came in second for the Broncos ownership, which was the Harris Group. So that should kind of lend you to believe, for one, that that ownership never stood a chance with the Waltons, but also how close they were of getting an ownership group themselves. And
what was it, like $6-something billion they bought it for?
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope, I was done.
But then you got Magic Johnson in that group, right? Says that they're already talking about changing the name. And from what I heard, the Redskins are in, like, the name is in play, like going back to Redskins.
No, there's no way.
Yeah,
there's no way.
Listen, I'm just telling you what I read.
And I think Magic just said everything's up in play.
On what I read.
I think Magic didn't say that they were. He wasn't very definitive about that they were going to change the name. He just left it as a possibility in a year from now. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, like, there's no way they can actually go to that. Like, there's no way they can go to that, especially after all the hassle and stuff like that it was to change the name. There's no way that, they would actually go back to something that was, a firestorm, if you will, with just that whole name change. Plus, it created this, fantastic South Park episode. So that was lovely.
I just don't want it to be the Commanders anymore. That's the stupidest name ever. I hate it. I don't even like who cares about the team? But seriously, the name is dumb.
I definitely feel like the team needs a rebrand, just in my opinion, to move away from the Dan Snyder era. Mm-hmm. You're never going back to the previous brand. I never felt like that brand should have been in play to begin with, but so I feel like a good brand for them could be like the Hogs or the Red Hogs. It's a good nod to their previous history as well as a nod to the future of their franchise. I've heard that could be a potential strong rebrand that could be in play for them. But I don't know, man. I feel like Commanders is just synonymous with Dan Snyder now, and they want to kind of wash their hands of everything that man has done to taint that organization. So if it's changing the name and officially turning the page to a new era, I feel like that ownership group would be all for it and would jump through any hoops and hurdles necessary to get it done.
I'm gonna predict that Red Hogs doesn't make the cut.
Wild Hogs.
Red Hogs.
Don't get me wrong though. I like the W logo that they have. I think that's pretty sweet. I think it's cool. It's classy. It's modern. I don't like Commanders. I feel like Red Wolves or something like it would have been better.
Anything, yeah.
Yeah, I think there were a few that I was kind of going back and forth on. Like this was back before they went to Commanders, which by the way, quick little bunny trail. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really funny when they came out with the Washington football team, how it took roughly a year, but the moment they said they were going to go through a name change, in like the first 30 minutes, you already had way better names than everything that they came out with before they finally decided on the Washington football team, and then they decided on the Commanders. So I thought it was pretty hilarious. But all during that span of 30 minutes, there were some really clever names that I saw, and a couple of them, and actually my favorite is Red Tails. I do like Red Tails. Red Hawks or Red Wolves, I think. Red Wolves, I think, was another one. But I think my personal preference is just Red Tails, in terms of maybe what they could do. And plus, like, if they want to, I guess, keep the color scheme and jerseys of what they could do, maybe that kind of fits with what they want to do with Red Tails.
Yeah. Kind of moving into some closer to home news. Justin Herbert just signed a 5-year, $262 million extension.
Bank.
So we're going to have him around for a while. I do think it's well earned, though. I do think Justin Herbert is top 5, top 10. I mean, is he top 5 at this point?
He's definitely inside the top 10.
Do you have to have any playoff success to be considered top 5?
I don't know.
I would think so.
Well, and you certainly can't blow a 27-0 lead.
That's true. Yep. And then
I think he's fringe top 5.
I
But
think so too.
But though I definitely
we'll go with 6.
I will say though,
in between.
But I was just going to say though, I think Justin Herbert's a nice little case though for a lot of draft people that are out there that do not overthink a prospect, because a lot of people really overthought, I think, the stuff going on with Justin Herbert. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, there were some people that even had Paxton Lynch comparisons. Yes, our very famous quarterback in the who was in our room, there were some comparisons being thrown around with Herbert, and it's very clear that he was not that type of player. He came in, he made sure that was the narrative. He wanted to create his own narrative, and he's kind of come in and really shown to be a very successful and productive quarterback. The question is just been what's around him, or is it coaching, or is it just something to do with some of the players, or even health and injuries? I mean, it's a lot of things for him, but he's definitely got to get over that hump and win a playoff game and win more playoff games, because right now it's kind of teetering on almost like a Peyton Manning career early on, like just in terms of trying to get over that hump, if you will.
Yeah, I think
Well, I'm really glad that.
Go ahead.
I'm really glad that Cam brought up the point of Justin Herbert really being a focal point of a lot of draft analysts really changing how they evaluate quarterbacks. I remember when I first was evaluating Justin Herbert coming out, I'm very grateful this was before I had a platform, because I saw a lot of Mitchell Trubisky in him just because of inconsistencies with lower body mechanics. The offense that they ran with him at Oregon, I now realize was very limiting to him. His first year in the NFL, he clearly put in the necessary work, and also being surrounded by Pep Hamilton in that year to really help him clean up some of his fundamentals, just his overall mechanics, I feel like that helped him significantly in terms of honing in on his craft. That year with Pep Hamilton, he's somebody who's worked with guys like Andrew Luck and helped them hone in on their craft. So I feel like that cannot be overstated, but just the work that he's put in himself to overcome all of those narratives and those barriers cannot be overstated. And he changed how I look at quarterback prospects coming out of the draft. He really did.
Right, and going off of like what Steve Starkovich said, he's going to be a Rivers and a Breeze, no championships. I do agree. Hopefully he doesn't get any championships, because that means the Chargers won one, and I don't want that. But
I think he means Breeze as a Charger, not Saint.
Right. No, I think it's going to be kind of like a Dan Marino situation, like not comparing him to Dan Marino, but like a great quarterback on an okay team. You know what I mean? Like not really surrounded by a lot of guys that can help. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening.
Well, I want to touch on a point that Cam actually brought up when we were chatting behind the scenes about Kellen Moore. Why don't you go ahead and bring that up, Cam?
I just was kind of phrasing this question. I mean, like, who do you guys feel, and this is for the group here, this is for the chat, this is for you guys, who do you guys feel is on a much bigger hot seat, if you will, to perform? Is it Kellen Moore or is it Justin Herbert? And the way I phrase that is, so I mentioned that Justin Herbert needs to get over the hump and win playoff games and maybe even advance further into the playoffs. But also Kellen Moore, he should have been a head coach in 2 cycles, right? Like in about 2 straight cycles, he should have been a head coaching candidate. So if he can't make it work with Justin Herbert, then surely he is no longer a head coaching candidate. So who do you guys feel is, under more, scrutiny, if you will, to get the job done?
You said Kellen Moore or Justin Herbert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Kellen Moore, hopefully he'll show up, in a suit next time, or like, not sweatpants to the interview. But, I mean, Justin is signed, a lot of guaranteed money. They've committed to him, so it's probably going to be Kellen Moore because he's way more expendable at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you almost have to put Brandon Staley in that conversation too. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I think Brandon Staley is on the hottest seat of all of them right now.
Yeah, I'd say out of those 3, Brandon Staley. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Justin Herbert, I feel like he's under a lot of outside pressure from like the media and fans because, I mean, he's the quarterback. He's always going to be put on that pedestal, and he's going to be sort of synonymous with the team's overall success. But I also feel like the Chargers' shortcomings are not because of Justin Herbert. They're because of the situation around Justin Herbert. And so for me, I feel like within the organization, the guy who's under the most pressure is definitely Brandon Staley. But Kellen Moore also, I feel like, definitely feels that outside pressure as well, because just like Cam touched on, he's been passed over twice now in head coaching cycles. Some of that may be to his own faults, obviously, as Glenn touched on, but also, I feel like Kellen Moore is one of the brighter offensive minds out there and deserves at least a consideration for a head coaching job. But he could also be one of those coaches who's best as a coordinator but not quite ready as a coach. We got to remember, he's still a young coach. It's not too long ago that Kellen Moore was playing in the NFL. So I feel like this is going to be a big stepping stone for Kellen Moore in his career to showcase what he can do outside of that realm of the Dallas Cowboys.
I wonder if Staley's not going to go for it on 4th down every single time this year. I mean, I wonder if he's learned his lesson, or if he's going to continue to be a gambler like that. Because
or I was going to say, or rest his starters on a meaningless game, and was it week 18 when they played the Broncos, and and lo and behold, they had no excuses. The Broncos beat them, but
they still came out and played like crap.
But I will say, like, you do feel, even with the extension that came with Justin Herbert, the Chargers are under a lot of scrutiny. Like, even with Brandon Staley and and the Kellen Moore stuff and Justin Herbert, they have to get the job done, because if they don't, they will be a team of what ifs. I mean, a team that looks good on paper, a team that is truly a playoff contending team, but I mean, like it's one where they just are a team of what could have been, and also, not to circle back, on some of the Sean Payton stuff, but this is a reason why I am so happy Sean Payton took the Broncos job, because there were so many rumors that were swirling about Sean Payton and potentially the LA Chargers, that if whatever happens in the future with Brandon Staley, they can't hire Sean Payton. Sean Payton is now attached to the Broncos for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, the fact is the Chargers may end up being an attractive position, but also they are in, a dire need to succeed right now.
Right. So kind of moving into running backs. I know we talked a little bit about it last week. There's 2 updates. One was Nyheim Hines, who is Bills running back. He was sitting stationary on a jet ski and was hit by another jet ski. So he is out for the season with a knee injury. And that kind of goes into the running back situation through the NFL. They just had a Zoom call where they had certain, I'm not going to name them all, but they had certain high-profile running backs on the call. And we're trying to figure out the running back situation in the NFL. There was talks about exaggerating injuries. There was some talk about sitting out. But we did just have Saquon Barkley sign a 1-year extension, I believe, with the Giants. But all he got was $900,000 more than his original contract, except for $2 million of it is now a signing bonus. So I don't know if that's what they were aiming for, but it doesn't seem like anything really got accomplished.
I don't think it was what it was. Oh, go ahead, Gage.
No, sorry, go ahead.
All right. What I was going to say is when you're tagged, you don't get a signing bonus, so that at least replaced that portion of it. I would have thought that he would have probably been in the $12.5 million range, like something a little bit more. And now there's reports that after they tagged him, they attempted to trade him. They contacted at least 6 teams that obviously had no interest in taking on that kind of contract commitment and giving up whatever would be required to give up. So I don't know. Just it's hard to feel sorry for a guy that makes $11 million a year. But on the flip side, when you see these other players, I mean, there's no stopping the trajectory of and we talked about this last week, of the salaries for all, a lot of other high profile positions, even ones that don't seem as high profile as a running back. We'll see what happens.
Like Diggs didn't was it Trayvon Diggs just signed $97 million for 5 or 2 or
96?
Yeah. Which, I mean, if you're Pat Surtain, you should be eyeballing that because you're going to be worth a little bit more, once that contract stuff is happening. I think too. I think for the running back position in terms of contracts, the other part that I thought about is like it's actually really smart for them to have this conversation, and it's a little unfortunate it's taken this long. But with the fact that now you're starting to see a fair amount of position groups and their contracts balloon a lot more, for instance, like wide receiver, it's fair to have this conversation with, whoever about like, okay, what can we do or something to ensure that like these types of contracts can balloon for us in the future? Because like the fact is like you're going to get a productive back for 1 year for $3 million or something like that. But like, how can we get it so these types of running backs can be rewarded, knowing the fact about the wear and tear that they can have on their body. And so the more wear and tear that they have, the better secure they will be with a ballooned contract. Right. And so so I think that this idea of them having this conversation, granted, we're not in those meetings, we're not in those Zoom meetings, but having this conversation about, how can we get those contracts to a 20 million, a 30 million, per year? How can we get to that point? I think it's really smart for them.
Yeah,
absolutely. I feel like at this point there's going to be, talks about a potential running backs union. That's what I feel like this Zoom call could potentially fester into, or potentially the NFLPA could get involved and try to get their resources involved in this. I just overall feel like there has to be a common ground that can be reached here where running backs can be compensated a lot more fairly for their services, because if we face it, they're the position that takes the most punishment in this sport, and there are long-term health ramifications of playing this game. And that's what a lot of people, I feel like, fail to take into account, is just how much money these people have to spend to take care of their bodies, to make sure that their bodies aren't completely broken down by the time they hit age 50. So that's where a lot of this financial capital from these contracts goes. I mean, you look at how much money guys like Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, the top paid quarterbacks spend to take care of their bodies. I'd argue running backs need even more substantial treatment at times. So that's where I feel like a lot of this financial capital needs to be invested into with running backs. And perhaps there's an insurance policy down the line for NFL running backs to dip into to pay for some of these resources to take care of their bodies down the line. in the event that they need to use it.
Completely agree. And with that, we're going to get into some Denver Broncos news. Say what you want. That is a sweet helmet. I love it. That was the unveiling of the alternate helmet that the Broncos released today. And that pairs with the Color Rush, right?
Yes, it does.
I love it.
It's chilly in here. I mean,
that was weird. I don't know. Like, there's some people that are like, oh, the Color Rush is just too orange and the white doesn't take away from it. I love it. I think the white with the Color Rush is going to be awesome.
Dude, it was hiding in plain sight the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, well, and not to mention, like, if you go back and you look at, and there are a fair amount of people that notice this. Like, if you go back and look at the tease picture, you could see something along the lines of like that deforming, like, you know, in the snow and everything. Like, so it was pretty easy to determine, you know, what the idea for the logo was going to be, and you know, and stuff like that. But they did a great job with this. And I mean, again, like, if you're going to create, I guess you could call it an alternate of the Color Rush uniform or the Color Rush helmet, the best way they could possibly do it is white. It's just, you know, what was going to come with it. And you could not have messed it up. You could not have, you know, messed it up by putting or not putting a stripe on the helmet, you know. But, you know, I also think it's a trial run, you know. I think it's a trial run. I think that what they're doing, because it seems like the new uniforms are going to be coming for next year. But what I think is that this is going to end up being a trial run while they're using with the Color Rush uniforms this year, is that I think that it's going to be a trial run for potentially new home uniforms next year and away uniforms next year. So the orange uniforms with the white pants, which is what a lot of people were clamoring for in this cycle, may actually happen, or all white with that white helmet, you know, and of course, you know, an alternate one with, you know, the blue helmet, of course, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, the orange jersey and the white pants was never an option with this. It's an alternate helmet. It was going to be paired 2 games with the Color Rush uniform, and that Color Rush uniform has to be the same color on the jersey and the pants. You know, like we've seen that. For, personally, I mean, the helmet is just insane. I absolutely love it. I love the fact that they have Justin and PS2, the ice throne with the you know, the D logo etched into it. It was just killer. I mean, I am a huge fan of the Color Rush jerseys. Cam is sporting one tonight. You know, I think they are the sharpest jerseys of any of the 3 or 4 that the Broncos do wear. So, oh man, I'm excited because it's not a variation from what the fans wanted. You know, it's I think everybody was clamoring for the old logo to you know, the retro logo to make a reappearance in a more permanent basis. And I'm not only excited about this, I'm excited about the fact that it's looking like a year from now we're getting new uniforms.
So, I mean, I'm excited. I enjoy this helmet a lot more than I thought I would, honestly. I'm a little bit of a purist.
You hated the white helmet, though.
Yeah.
I honestly was of the opinion initially that I did. But now that I've actually seen it paired with the Color Rush, it looks a lot better than I thought. Yeah. I really did. I tweeted this morning that I was the get off my lawn guy.
Yeah.
Think
we already have one of those, Gage. His name's Bill.
He's right down there in the chat.
Oh my god. But yeah, so initially I was a very skeptical going into this, but it looked a lot better than I was initially fearful that it would. So I'm optimistic about that. I also, when we change our color scheme, I don't want the Navy to completely go away. I have so much Broncos Navy stuff. My favorite Broncos uniforms are all Navies.
Yeah.
It's synonymous with, in my opinion, the most successful era of Broncos football, with the late John Elway era, with the Peyton Manning era. I mean, obviously we switched the oranges with them, but I don't want the Navy to die, and I'm worried the Navy's going to die.
Well, so my question is, though, sorry, Cam. My question is, like, with talking about new uniforms, though, are they going to, and obviously we don't know, but are they going to completely change the color scheme back to what it was? Or are we looking more like them making the Color Rush jersey the main jersey and then doing a different style for the alternate?
That's why I said what I said earlier, which was like, I think this is a trial run with that helmet and the Color Rush, because I think that what they'll end up doing is probably, well, it's hard to forecast the future, but it would be those white pants with the navy blue, in something of that fashion, not having the navy blue all together and then doing like an all white, which I'm sure that, that's been some of the mock-ups that we've all seen on Twitter right now. But
yeah.
I actually think that what would be really cool is to have like 4 variations of it, if you will. So obviously there's like something that would be almost like an all blue, that's where you can use the blue helmet, right? The navy blue helmet for. And then you have one which is the true ode to the 1990s, which is the baby blue, because I think that will be a nice appease for some of the generation like that, to where, if you basically did the exact same jersey, if you will, for like an orange, but you did it in the baby blue with the white and baby blue, or the baby blue helmet and the orange, I think would be really nice. Because like if they can do it something like that to where they can still be able to appease that generation, I think would be a really smart way to do it. But that's.
But how cool would Cam's jersey be with the white pants with the navy and white stripes down the side, just like the stripes on his sleeves? I mean, that would be so freaking cool.
Well, and I'm assuming we're not talking about. Oh my God! I'm assuming we're not talking about the white helmet being the full-time helmet next year, though, right?
That's what I'm talking about. That.
Or are you thinking like the Color Rush blue helmet?
No, I'm saying I think the white would be their full-time helmet.
Really?
How cool would be the Color Rush next year if they went to the navy blue helmet that they had with the D, and the navy jersey and the navy pants? I mean, that would be just ridiculous.
That would be sweet. I do like that.
That would make Gage's day.
Any other thoughts in the comments? Let us know what you think about the changing of the uniforms. Give us your opinions, what you think they might be. But we do have some other Broncos news. We've got some signings. We've got some releases. We've got some injury updates. The Broncos brought in Brett Maher. So are we now going to have a kicker competition? Is that what we're doing now? Like no more McManus, so now we have a kicker competition?
Certainly seems that way.
Peyton likes competitions.
Yeah.
Unless we get into the playoffs and then we don't start Maher. Is that what we're doing?
Dude, the guy was money. Like he just struggled, like.
Yeah.
I mean, he just one of the best kicking seasons of NFL history he had, and then, just the extra points. I mean, just got the yips.
Yeah.
So, I was excited that they brought him in. I honestly never heard of the guy, Elliott Fry, that they had. Like, they still have Fry, but we need a reliable kicker, and I think Maher's going to do fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and okay, here I go. He was
Nebraska
a kicker.
Guy.
Here we go. I think it goes to
Cornhusker.
Right.
He doesn't even live in Nebraska.
But I think that's the thing that makes this so fun is like if you go look at what he was able to do in Nebraska, he was a punter, and he decided to take his career to being a kicker, and and he's only been in the NFL for 4 years, but the 1 year that he did spend with New Orleans was, I think was a year that he was with Sean Payton, if I'm not mistaken, but that year, that 2022 season last year was crazy. He just, to what Glenn said, he just had the yips. I mean, in the playoffs, and but if you go back and look what he did, I mean, he nailed a 60-yard field goal in a season with 94%, kicking percentage and 90% like extra point percentage or something crazy. Like he was like 90 all across the board with like 53 extra points. It was an absurd number. And to mention, he has a huge leg. I know, studying kickers isn't really a big thing because you really don't study kickers, but he has a huge leg, right? I mean, as I said earlier, he had a 60-yard field goal. He even hit a 63-yard field goal in Dallas. So, I mean, like you put him in the Mile High City. I mean, like it certainly seems like a pretty nice fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about overcoming those yips for Brett Maher. He's always had a big leg, dating back to his first and second stint with the Cowboys. But in between that, he had a stint with Sean Payton and the Saints. So that's where that connection comes from. And Sean Payton, I feel like, is a good coach to help players overcome the yips. Mm-hmm. So that, and with the situation surrounding him with Mike Westhoff and Ben Kotwicka as the brainchild for our special teams, I feel like he couldn't have gone to a better situation to overcome some of those mental barriers. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like this could be a really good situation for Brett Maher to succeed. But he still has to beat out Elliott Fry.
Hopefully he's not fried.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay. Moving on. So, per Mike Kliss, the Broncos have waived quarterback Jarrett Garantano. So Ben DiNucci is the number 3 quarterback behind Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. Interesting to waive somebody before training camp. No?
Well, they had to make the space for Mark.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But they also signed a rookie wide receiver, Nick Williams, former Cherry Creek guy.
Yeah, he's been off and on with the team, but I think that it's interesting. I mean, it's pretty clear that Jarrett Stidham won the battle of the Jarretts. But I think that.
What did you drink today?
I had water. But but anyway, I just think that with what they were able to do, I think also too, like with what they had with probably like the OTAs and the stuff, like it was pretty easy to maybe, and I don't know if they're going to go with the 3 quarterbacks in camp, but I think it was pretty evident as they were moving into camp, like maybe they were going to roll with 3 quarterbacks, and Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci, also of the Dallas Cowboys, was going to be the 3 that they roll with Russell Wilson.
We also had Baron Browning and Kendall Hinton were put on the PUP. KJ Hamler and Mike Purcell on the NFI list, non-football injury. Surprising that Javonte Williams is not on the PUP list. Kind of thought he would start on the PUP and then come off, but he's not. Apparently he's at the stage in his recovery where he's good enough to not be on the PUP list.
I was listening to the Dave Logan podcast today, and he actually mentioned, he was talking about Javonte, and he said that, he would be pleasantly surprised if he actually was ready to start the season. And I thought that was interesting because as the voice of the Broncos for over 30 years, Dave is certainly well tied into that organization. He wasn't being negative. It was just one of those things where, like as he was talking about these some of the same stuff where, he's not starting out on the PUP. He was surprised that after a significant knee injury like this, that he would be ready to roll.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I myself would have put him on the PUP list, but I think I think for me, if the one thing that it shows me, with him being 2 things that it shows me with him not being on the PUP list is that it's pretty clear that the injury wasn't as severe as initially thought, which had been some rumors that have been thrown around. It's like, maybe this isn't as severe as initially thought. And in terms of the second thing is that like, it certainly seems like they're comfortable with where he's at on that injury, and both Javonte is comfortable with his injury about moving him forward. But I still feel a little bit hesitant probably on the Dave Logan side where it's like, there's just still a part of me that's like, is this the smart decision? And because like, and even if they didn't put him on the physically unable to perform list, why wouldn't you? I mean, because if you are still hesitant about him being on the field, that early, why not put him on there?
Yeah. Going into the main topic of the evening, other than the alternate helmets, Broncos defensive lineman Eyioma Uwazurike has been suspended indefinitely for betting on NFL games in the 2022 season. I don't understand why we're still having this conversation. There have been enough players that have been suspended for betting. You're not supposed to bet on them. Why are you betting on games? We were already thin at D-line, and now we don't have Uwazurike.
At the end of the day, this is a common sense issue. I talked about it in my video. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's a younger player, but at the same time, we've seen plenty of circumstances of players getting suspended even before last season with Calvin Ridley. I mean, you have to know going into the NFL that you're not supposed to gamble on the NFL. You can gamble on NCAA, you can gamble on the NBA, you can gamble on the UFC, just not on the NFL. And I feel like at the end of the day, this is just a common sense test for a lot of these guys out there. And Eyioma Uwazurike failed it. He just did. And now it leaves the Broncos in a really, really crappy spot because their main rotational defensive end at this point in time is going to be Jonathan Harris. That's a concern for me. I know that the Broncos like Jonathan Harris. He's lasted through multiple regimes, but also as the primary rotational guy who's going to see a lot of snaps on that D-line, that's very concerning. So the Broncos are going to have to add some heavy reinforcements. And also Mike Purcell went on the PUP. So they're going to need to add a couple of bodies, at least to get through camp on the D-line. And Shelby Harris, where are you? Matt Ioannidis, where are you?
Yeah.
That's
for
what
me,
I was
when
just going to ask, was like, go ahead, Glenn.
I was going to say, when I heard the news last night, the two things that really stuck out to me is just absolutely how moronic it is to choose to bet on the NFL when you're an NFL player. I mean, common sense is 100% there. But the other thing that really struck me was, it just reinforces the lack of leadership that this team had last year under, Hackett and, some of his cronies that he had working for him. This happened as a result of him gambling last season, during the season. How is that not reinforced? The hugging, the buddy, that's where you need an adult in the room. And I mean, Sean Payton is already railing about how bad this is with, as far as league goes, and how, at some point, if your class is getting a bunch of D's, you got to start looking at the teacher.
Yeah. And I think when you, to pull up a Ray's point again, like, I think it's still a fair comment to be made. Like, I mean, like, because given the stuff with Calvin Ridley and everything, it's definitely a fair comment to be made in the sake of like the fact that gambling gets that amount of punishment versus domestic violence and sexual assault. Like, it needs to be said, obviously, that why would something like that get the most punishment, or someone who, and to reference the past, smoking weed would get a much longer suspension than someone with a domestic violence. So, but at the end of the day, and this is the thing, is like at the end of the day, it's like when you, to use a different sport reference, but like when you walk into a dugout and you see the rules that are in your dugout of the rules that you have to abide by, you have to abide by those rules. You may not necessarily think that those rules are the right rules or the right way to go about it, but rules are rules. And I get the whole, idea that, rules are made to be broken, that kind of thing. But when you're in the NFL and you are a high profile athlete, rules are made to be followed, not broken. And if you break those rules, you will be punished.
So I have a question that maybe you guys can clarify. Maybe anybody in the chat can clarify. You got Jameson Williams who did the same thing, betting last year, got a 6-game suspension. You've got Uwazurike who got an indefinite suspension. Does it start an indefinite and then they appeal it down? Or because we're not getting a whole lot of info on like what the level of betting or gambling was. So does it start
So
at
the
indefinite and go down?
The difference between Jamison Williams and Eyioma Uwazurike was Williams was not betting on the NFL. He was betting on NCAA, NBA, whatever it was.
Okay.
But he did it like at the team facility or on a team road trip, whatever it was. He did it at work. You're not allowed to do any form of betting at all at any team-sponsored activity. Not at the stadium, not at the team facility, not on a trip during a road game. Any team-sponsored activity, you cannot gamble. And so that's what Jamison Williams and a couple of other guys who got suspended for only 6 games, that's what they ended up getting popped for. Eyioma Uwazurike, if you get caught betting on the NFL, it seems like you're going to get indefinite for the year, and there's no getting it reduced or anything along those lines.
And for Uwazurike, his suspension starts now, so he's completely gone. Not only the full season, through any of the mini camps and OTAs of next year, and then he's going to be coming in cold basically for training camp next year. I mean, they put him on the exempt list. I don't think they're going to keep him. I think they're just going to say this guy's upside just isn't worth the hassle, and also, it will send a pretty strong message to the other guys on the team, like, this will be you, not this could be you. This will be you if you participate in it.
And with you, Uwazurike, in terms of playing time point, did something Gage even mentioned, but it's like when you are a raw player like that, and there's no question he had talent coming in, but it was just like when it takes you a few times as a project, like about a year, if not 2 years in, you being even suspended a whole year stalls your development. And so the fact that you are putting yourself in that kind of predicament again may not have been you thought it was a fair thing to break, but at the end of the day, rules are rules. That's still on you. That is still on you with the fact that you broke that rule, and so that is on you in terms of truly breaking something and breaking your own development and becoming the player that you need to be. So in terms of blame, it should fall on Uwazurike. And if they do cut him, I agree. I mean, you have to make sure that you set that example. And with Peyton now in the building, I would not be surprised if they moved on from that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Well, we saw it with Isaiah Rodgers of the Colts. Isaiah Rodgers is a guy who is slated to be one of their starting corners, very high upside player for them, their main return guy. I mean, he was expected to have a big role. And after he got suspended, the Colts cut ties with him. They released him. So Eyioma Uwazurike isn't even close to the level that Isaiah Rodgers was. So I don't see a scenario where Eyioma Uwazurike is still on this roster, given the culture that Sean Payton is trying to set, the no selfish culture, the zero me first attitude. That's what I feel like this is all going to boil down to. And I don't see a scenario where he's still here at the end of the day.
Yeah. So with Purcell being sidelined on PUP for now, and with Uwazurike being out, does that put more pressure on trying to get a Shelby Harris in or trying to get a Leonidas in? Or
I would actually say I wouldn't even put it past the Broncos of bringing in 2 guys. Like now with the loss of Uwazurike and Purcell on the on that list. So I mean Shelby Harris comes to mind. I know Yannick Ngakoue is another one that certainly comes to mind. I know he's 36, but Ndamukong Suh probably would be a name, maybe that'd be thrown around.
I knew that was coming.
Hey, every single year he's been on a roster lately. They've gone to the Super Bowl, so you can at least bank on the fact that they can at least go to the Super Bowl if Suh is a Bronco.
My only question about Ngakoue is that he's an edge, though. Do we need?
I mean,
we need another edge.
Wouldn't hurt because, I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, with Randy Gregory's health, Nick Bonito, you don't know if he's going to take that leap. And Frank Clark, I mean, I would feel much better even, I felt pretty good with the addition of Frank Clark, but you put another player with about the exact same productivity of Frank Clark in that room, I would feel so much better with that room with Randy Gregory and, Frank Clark and, and even Baron Browning with his knee injury and stuff like that. And then, of course, there's Jonathan Cooper, who's the forgotten one of this entire bunch. So I think that, I would feel so much better with that room with a Yannick Ngakoue. So, I mean, if you can do two like that, where it's Ngakoue and a Shelby Harris, you're sitting really pretty before week 1.
This is a total
I agree.
aside, but
That's
you
what I
mentioned
think.
Jonathan. You mentioned Jonathan Cooper, and is he going to wear number 0 this year, like he did at Ohio State? I've not
He is.
seen. I've seen him wearing the jersey, but I've not seen any announcement, and that would seem like it would be something significant to put out there.
I thought he is, and now, granted, that's just because maybe I've seen him wearing the 0, and so it's one that I guess I just assumed that he is wearing the 0. But I mean,
I love that.
Yeah, it would either be him or it would be JL Skinner. But I like the idea of Cooper, just because if you go back to dating back to college, they gave him that number 0 because of who he was on and off the field as a leader and what he provides. So I like that kind of tie into it.
Absolutely. And I believe that with Cooper, I did see a report back in March that he was going to switch to 0. And with, it was obviously a game between him and JL Skinner, and obviously Cooper has the seniority on the team, so he's going to get the number 0.
So that's all I've got. Do you guys have anything else you want to cover? Anything else you want to talk about? Anything at all?
No, I mean, we got training camp starting officially on Friday. There are some practices the next 2 days that are just open to the media and not the fans, but fans start there on Friday. It's going to be 3,000 people at each practice. It's the interesting story with that is, last year the Broncos tweeted out a picture and referenced that there were over 7,000 fans at training camp that day, and someone forwarded that photo over to the fire marshal, who decided that, we're going to put a stop to that. So 3,000 fans, and there are going to be some diehards, and I know Gage is going to be there a lot, and hopefully you can end up getting a ticket for when I'm there as well. And Cam, you've got your day. You already threw it out there, where you're going to be signing your book and
that's right.
And various and the new helmet.
Yeah, it's the Mickey Mouse book. You go to Disney World and it's the autograph book.
Oh yeah, the autograph book. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I was just gonna say I would be curious with it being training camp and the fact that the Sean Payton led group is really tight-lipped. What we see get shared on social media, because there are some teams that do a full training camp breakdown on days, just a full watch of training camp, if you will, and then there's some teams that just share clips here and there. I would be really curious to see what Sean Payton and the entire Broncos staff have in store going forward with even the rest of this training camp and beyond, because part of me even wonders, and I know you guys did too, at the behind the Broncos stuff. I wonder if that's now gone with Sean Payton in the building, because of the fact that everything is so tight-lipped. It would depend on when stuff like that would be leaked and shared and stuff like that. But I'm kind of curious with training camp now here, what things will be like with Sean Payton and what gets shared.
Well, maybe I'm
the good
wrong.
news is you can depend on the non-credentialed members of the media like myself to get stuff out there. I will be sharing plenty of clips, plenty of plays, plenty of information that I get.
If you can.
Trust me, I will get it. I will get it.
Well, my question is,
I have my ways to get it.
At least these last 2 or 3 years, they've had Steve Atwater doing shows at training camp, not really showing anything, because they don't want to give anything away. But I'm hoping they're going to do that again, because I enjoy those.
Oh, it's great. He'd have a former player as a guest every episode, so to speak, every practice, and just the stories that they were telling.
Had Derek Wolf in there once on the day he retired.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I hope they do
I
that.
was at training camp with John that day.
And just in case, anybody was wondering if the Denver Broncos were going to sign Dalvin Cook, no, not going to happen. Nope. Nope. I don't. Indefinite suspension coming. Not going to happen.
I was going to say, with the injury to Naheem Hines, it seems quite likely that he will reunite with his brother in Buffalo.
I doubt it. Highly unlikely. I'm assuming he's going to get a lengthy suspension. Especially
since the woman he tried to pay off with $1 million and she refused. I think this is going the distance.
Yeah. Plus, this is in like on top of like domestic assault. We're talking like a weapons charge here.
Right.
So, yeah, no, not gonna happen. So we're good with the running.
I will encourage you all to go watch Brandon Perna's video on this. That's all I'll say. Go watch Perna's video.
Yeah, go watch Perna's video.
He actually does a great job explaining the whole situation from both perspectives. And I feel I wouldn't be able to do justice explaining it. I feel like Perna did. So go check out Perna's video on this if you have not already.
Yeah. So if there's any question, no Dalvin Cook on the Broncos.
Yeah.
Just for future reference. But that's gonna about do it for us. We love and appreciate every single one of you for joining us in the chat. I guess.
I'm sorry.
I was rolling and then ruined
it. I'm sorry. But I do feel like this is something we need to just address very briefly in the sports world. Bronny James. He did have a cardiac arrest event. I feel like we need to at least acknowledge that. Thoughts out to him. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery. Something we've seen a little bit more frequently with younger athletes recently. Hopefully everything shakes out with Bronny James. That's all I just wanted to say. I think we needed to at least touch on that.
Did we get any info
thank you for saying that,
how that happened, or not yet?
No, just the fact that that's what happened. But yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to Bronny James, LeBron James, and the James family. It's a scary sight. I mean, especially everything that happened with Hamlin last year. It's really, really scary, and and it's something that I'm really glad that they responded the way they did, and it's one of the reasons why health professionals they may have the greatest job and the biggest job in the entire world, keeping all of us safe. So prayers and thoughts go to the James family.
Yep, thoughts and prayers from the network and everybody on it. But again, we do love and appreciate every single person that's in the chats on every show, any show, whichever one you're on the network. There's plenty to choose from. And make sure you check out those said shows. We broadcast from Mondays all the way to Fridays with the neighborhood joining in on Broncos games. So make sure you check those out. Go Broncos. Make sure you check out training camp. Get tickets to training camp if you can. Go have fun. Make sure you like those new helmets. Look forward to the new uniforms. We're going to go. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.